Are we on? Hi, everybody. It's me, Mr. Mambre. Um, I didn't. I kind of got talked into staying home today. Mrs. Mambre was like, "Look at your foot. You got to stay home today." It was a heck of a wreck, but we're all happy to be, you know, alive still and everything. But my foot, I guess, is still pretty puffed up. Where do you see it? It's real. No, I'm not going to show it to you. But anyway, I thought, poor Mrs. Marsh. She's put on the spot. Hi, Mrs. Marsh. Um, Put on the spot, and what is she going to talk about? She doesn't know what we've been talking about. So I just thought I'd put something together for you. Uh, you know by now that I have a tendency to ramble, and so I hope I don't ramble too much. But we were talking about orbits and talking about satellites. All right, so is everybody settled? Everything the All right. Just making sure you're settled. Um, I don't know. I just think I'm being silly, but like in just as a quick review. Okay, here we go. So we were talking about satellites. Remember, we have low Earth orbit, we have um, mid Earth orbit, and high Earth orbit, and the lower ones go faster, the higher ones go slower. Just like orbit around anything. If when you're orbiting around something, you go a lot faster, and the further away, the farther you go. And you remember some of my favorite satellites out there, the geostationary ones. They take exactly 24 hours to go around. It's good stuff. But I want to talk to you about a specific kind of satellite, and I think I briefly mentioned this the first week, but probably nobody remembers, but this is a great one because it's something that you can see just from your backyard, and under the right circumstances, it's pretty incredible. Even if I mean, and especially because like I told you before, I want you guys to be able to use this information like on a day-to-day, night-to-night basis. When you're camping, I want you to drag your friend out into underneath the dark sky and say, "Hey, look at what's about to happen." So anyway, one of my favorite satellite systems is called the Iridium satellites. Now, Iridium is, well, it's an element, first of all, but it's also a company. It's a communications company, and they make satellite phones and satellite communication type of things. And what they have is this network of satellites that's going around the Earth, always in a north to south configuration. They're either going north-south or south-north, and there's 66 working ones right now, and they have some spares. I think there are 80. I'm gonna have to look this up. But anyway, I think in total there's something around 80 because they have backups up there, and the backups aren't working. But in case one of them drops dead, they drop in a backup which is already in orbit. But they have it in this beautiful configuration, this network of satellites that has 100% coverage across the Earth, because each satellite is beaming a wide beam down onto the planet, and not us down there with one of these Iridium satellite phones. You stick it on your ear, and the antenna is always in view of a couple of these satellites, and so it always has a signal. And it's great because, if you have the right kind of phone, you could be in the middle of the desert. You could be miles and miles away from any cell phone tower and still be able to make a phone call. So from a communication standpoint, they're terrific. But the satellite itself, these 66 satellites, are these, large, they're maybe about the size of a school bus or bigger, and they have these big solar panels on them. And the solar panel is polished to a high mirror shine. And what happens is, so they're how far is the Iridium satellite? I'm gonna have to make a note of this too. Uh, However far it is, and we'll find out how far above the Iridium satellites are. But the distance that they are above the Earth means that at nighttime, when we're in darkness, the satellites themselves are still bathed in the light of the sun. You know, so sun is still hitting them. And this is the truth with all satellites. I mean, not all satellites, but when the satellites that we can see, if you've ever been, and I think we talked briefly about this before too, whenever you're laying out under the stars, you're laying on your back in the backyard, and it's dark, and you got every single source of light snuffed out. One of my favorite things to do. And you're looking, and just look, and maybe you're looking for you know, a meteor or something like that. Every once in a while, you will see what looks like a plane going by, and it's snaking its way just in a straight line, just going across the sky, but it's not blinking, and that's a satellite. If it's not blinking, it's a satellite, because a blinking light obviously is a safety lights on an airplane. So if it's going around the same speed as an airplane, but there's no blink, and they're usually quite dim, they're kind of hard to make out, then that's a satellite. It's just the light from the sun reflecting into your eyes, and it's terrific to see anyway. But the Iridium flare, because of the you know what, I should have. Well, hang on a minute. Because of the solar panels on the Iridium flare that act like mirrors, what they do is they catch the light of the sun, and it reflects. Hang on a minute. Okay, so here we are, and it's nighttime, right? And right here, it's the sun isn't on us, and so we're in relative darkness. But way far away from the Earth, back here where the satellites are all going, several miles up, there's the satellites passing by are still in the sunlight. Okay, we're back here in the dark. The satellite, you follow, right? Okay, now here comes the satellite. In my case, a baby food jar, my favorite snack. I highly recommend it. But and it's passing through, and you can see, you can see the see, I did it on accident. But as it passes through, you can see down there on Earth, you can see it reflecting at you. But every once in a while, the solar panel, in this case, the lid of the baby food jar, reflects the sun right into your eye, and you get a flash of light like that, And now this is what's known as an iridium flare. But the thing about it is, the solar panel is so small in the grand scheme of things. I mean, it's about the size of a Celino and Barnes billboard, so it's pretty big. Injured, but it's pretty big. But it's in the grand scheme of things, it's small. It's way up there, and so when it reflects into your eyes, that satellite, which is really dim, that non-blinking airplane-looking thing, which is really dim, suddenly gets ultra bright, all right? And just for a few moments. And it's because the light of the sun is shining directly into your eyes. And it's enough to make you go, wow, what was that? So, but the beauty of it is that the orbit of these satellites is so precise, and they know exactly how they're oriented with respect to the planet, with respect to us down here on Earth, that they know exactly when it's going to happen and when these flares will happen. But the flashes of light are so small that what you see in your backyard, your neighbor 3 blocks down the way is not going to see in his backyard. I mean, he might see a little bit of a flare, but it's not going to be as bright as what you see, or vice versa. Okay, so what I want to show you is how to find these flares, because they're really great to look for. There are some apps that you can get. Either the iOS has a better app, Iridium flares. Um, I have always liked the iOS app better, but Android has an app too. But what these apps do is that they'll with zero with pinpoint accuracy, they'll tell you exactly when this flare is going to happen and how bright it's going to be and where to look. Okay, so for these purposes, you got to figure out two coordinates. You have um, altitude, which is height, and azimuth, which is a circle going around this way. Okay, so now assume that you're obviously the sky goes on forever, effectively, but you have to assume in your imagination that we're covered by a great dome, the celestial sphere. The celestial sphere is what they call it, and it's just something that, I mean, you obviously it's not true, but it helps to think of ourselves covered by a dome of sky. And there are two measurements. One is the azimuth, which starts at 0 degrees north and goes 360 degrees around in a circle. So 90 degrees is due east, 180 degrees is due south, 270 degrees is due west, and then 360 degrees or 0 degrees, you're back to north again. So that is the azimuth. And the other measurement is altitude. Now altitude is just like a 90 degrees is a right angle, right? So 90 degrees, the horizon is 0 degrees, and 90 degrees is straight up, like the zenith, they call it. So the zenith, the exact highest point of the sky right now is the zenith. And so 45 degrees would be halfway between the horizon and the zenith. 30 degrees is about a third of the way up. You follow, right? You get the idea. So, where was I here? Oh, but in order to figure out azimuth, that 360 degrees, you have to figure out where north is. All right? So wherever you are in your backyard, or at St. Al's there or whatever, you can figure out north by, well, if you have an app, a compass app, you can figure that out easy enough. But at nighttime, you find north by finding the North Star. This is one of the basic things that people learn in astronomy. What you do is you find the Big Dipper, which is one of the biggest, easiest constellations in the night sky to find. You can find it all year round. It's not a summer or winter constellation. You can find it all year round. And in order to find the North Star, you see the handle of the Big Dipper, and then it goes down, and then the last two stars of the Big Dipper point to Polaris, which is the North Star. And now the only reason why it's the North Star, by the way, is because it just so happens that that star happens to be placed over our North Pole with respect to the way that we spin. So as we travel through space, our planet spins, and that North Star never moves according to our eyeballs, because we're just going around and around and around the North Pole. And every other star goes in a circle around that star, which is why if you take a camera and leave the shutter open so that the stars make a trail through the night, and you point it at the North Star, then the North Star is going to be the only one that doesn't move all night long. This is a fun thing to do at night. I like doing the star trail pictures, but that's why that happens. So the nice thing about the North Star is, since it's right over the North Pole, once you find the North Star, you know where north is. That's 0 degrees north. All right. So if you were to find if you wanted to find something that was azimuth of 90 degrees, you would turn due east, right? 90 degrees. So that's, I mean, if this is north, you know, if you're north, then 90 degrees is east. And then the altitude is 45 degrees is halfway up, 30 degrees is a third of the other way up, 60 degrees is two-thirds of the way up, 90 degrees is all the way up, 0 degrees is the horizon. All right. So, and those are the only two coordinates that you need to find an iridium flare. You need the azimuth and the altitude. Now, the apps that they have on phones make it easier, but if you don't have a phone, or you know, if you don't have a cell signal on your iDevice or whatever, they also have a website called Heavens Above, heavensabove.com. I think it's heavensabove.com. I'll make sure. And what you could do is put in your coordinates and figure out when the next several iridium flares are going to be coming at you. So how do you find out what your coordinates are? Now again, with smartphones, they do have apps that will just tell you what coordinates you're at. But what you can do is go to this website and simply type in your address. You type your address in, and then it will give you the coordinates. Then you go to the Heavens Above website, and you enter the latitude and longitude in there, and set that as your location. And then you can click on iridium flares, and it'll show you the next several iridium flares that are coming, how bright they're going to be, and the distance to the center, etc., etc. Lots of information. And the beauty of it is that these orbits are so precise, and they're so well thought, so 100% predictable, because you know the guys who made them put them up there, and so they know what's going to happen. You know, and an iridium flare is a really great thing to see. It's one of my favorite things to look out for it in the night sky. Satellites are cool enough, but an iridium flare, especially a nice bright one, is just enough to knock your eyes out. Now, magnitude, by the way, we'll talk about magnitude in greater depth later on. But the lower the magnitude, the brighter the object. So a magnitude of -8, I think, is as bright as these iridium flares can get, which is really bright. So -8, -7, -6, -5, down to 0, and then you count up, and you get dimmer as you go. Yeah, I think that's gonna about cover it. I know that this isn't a whole class's worth of stuff, but maybe, hopefully, this will help you out, give you something to think about, and especially something for you to take home and try at home and check out at home. You remember when the first day I asked for you guys home addresses? Well, that's because I wanted to figure out each one of your latitude and longitude, your coordinates, where you live, and then figure out when the next iridium flares are going to be. But you should be doing that. I mean, why should I be doing the thinking for you, right? So yeah, I think that you should try that out. So that's what I want you guys to do this coming week. I will put this video up on YouTube too. Like this is right now, it's just on a hard drive, but I'll put it on YouTube so that you can access the video again from YouTube. And I'll send you some notes too, so that you don't have to sit through this whole video again and listen to me blather on. So thank you, Mrs. Marsh, for looking after these yahoos. I'll see you folks again next week, and thanks for hanging with me. And don't hug Jonah too hard. Okay, bye. Oh, I almost forgot my weekly irrelevancy. Okay, here's the weekly irrelevancy. It's something that you should know about me, and there's also a moral to this story. About 10 years ago, I woke up in the middle of the night and I was starving. So I went to the fridge and no, I went to the pantry. I found a box of Life cereal and I was barely awake. I could still remember myself doing this, but I was barely awake. And so I got the cereal out, poured it in a bowl, and went into the fridge and took out a bottle of Italian dressing. And I shook it. I remember shaking the Italian dressing, pouring it on the Life cereal, and I took a bite of it. Took a bite of it. And I distinctly remember. So I was asleep. I don't know what I was doing. I don't like Italian dressing on cereal. I meant to pour milk on the cereal just in case you're not following here. And but I remember chewing it, swallowing it, and then taking another bite, thinking to myself, something's not right here, but I can't figure out what it is. And so the second bite, finally I came awake fully and spit it into the sink. I still can't explain why I did that. There was it was a very bizarre point in my life, and for like a year and a half, he couldn't even look at either Life cereal or Italian dressing because the thought of it made me sick. So the moral of the story is, don't eat while you're sleeping.